All right, I lost my tripod. I have no idea where it is. So I Jimmy rigged a bunch of books that are standing up, holding my cell phone so I can do this video for you. So last year, my son and his girlfriend invited me to tag along with them to Italy to drop off my son's girlfriend's cousin for a study abroad program, a summer internship. I obviously said, yes, I want to go. I was a last minute add-on. I had to book my Airbnbs in a last minute situation, which meant I was not next to or near where my son and his girlfriend and their family were staying. So we had to meet up every single morning and part ways in the evening, and I had to find my way back to my Airbnb in the evening in these locations, which was easy to do in Milan, was easy to do in Rome, not so easy to do in Venice. I did get lost a couple of times, and I did think of Jack the Ripper a few times when I was alone at night walking back to my room, but I knew I was safe, and ultimately I am, because I'm here to tell the tale. The first place that we went to was Milan. We flew into Milan because the flights were cheaper than flying into anywhere else in Italy, and that's the location where my son's girlfriend's cousin was doing her summer internship program, her study abroad program. So that's where we flew in. I gotta be honest, I didn't really like Milan that much. So how this trip was set up is that in each location that we went to, Milan, Venice, Murano, and Rome, each person's family set up what was going to be done that day. So somebody was in charge of the Airbnb, and that same somebody was in charge of everything that we were going to be doing in that location. So in Milan, I don't really recall who set it up, and I feel bad saying it, but I think the only reason we were there was to use it to go to other places. There was an espresso shop that kind of had made American coffee that we went to, and so we had chocolate croissants and we had an espresso, and we stood outside the coffee shop and had our espresso and croissant, and that was lovely. And then we got on the train and went to Lake Como, and somebody organized Lake Como. I was really excited about Lake Como because my son had told me that that is one of the spots where they filmed a Star Wars scene. And so I watched it, I rewatched that Star Wars scene over and over again, super excited about it. And we got to Lake Como and boom, we didn't go to that scene. I was like, why am I in Lake Como? I'm here, I'm ready to see the Star Wars scene, and we're not even going to that spot. So we walked around for the first half of the day. Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, we're overlooking everything and seeing the beauty of the homes on the hill or the mountain and the Alps in the background. So yes, it's absolutely gorgeous. And then we got to the shopping area, and that was gorgeous as well. I mean, every single building in Italy, well, practically every single building in Italy, it's beautiful. I couldn't get over the architecture in Italy. I just absolutely loved it everywhere we went. But Milan had new builds, and in the heart of the city, there were some old churches and stuff like that were absolutely beautiful. And so when we got to Lake Como, I was super excited about it. There were some old buildings that I saw. We walked around for a bit, looking out at the water. Yes, that was beautiful. And then we got to the shopping area. And I'm not a big shopper. I'm more of a foodie type of person. And I'm more of a person who likes to go out on the trail or kayak or do something active. So I kind of wasn't into the whole shopping scene. I would even do like an architecture tour or a self-guided architecture tour. So I don't know. I think I would go back to Lake Como just so I can do a boat tour and see that Star Wars scene. Yes, I would. And we did go on a funicular, and we went up the funicular and we walked around that area. And I will say that that was absolutely beautiful. We had a fantastic lunch at this Italian restaurant. It was wonderful. The scenery was beautiful. The ambiance was quiet. And we just had a lovely time getting to know each other. It had an amazing view over the water. That I really enjoyed.
And we found a super cool gelato place.
It probably wasn't the best gelato in the world, but the atmosphere was 100% top notch. I loved the vibe in there. It was super duper cute. And it was refreshing. So I was stinking hot this entire trip in Italy. Every single place we went to, I was so hot. I don't know what it was. Everybody else had long sleeve shirts on and long pants, and I don't know how people weren't sweating to death, because I was sweating to death. So first we were in Milan. My favorite part about Milan was the train station. There was also, in between our Airbnbs, there were super cool restaurants that were dotted all along the way. And in the middle of the street was a long park, and everybody was walking their dogs, and there were tons of trees. And so where we were at, where our Airbnbs were at, was just an absolutely beautiful scene where my Airbnb was. And then just in between all those little restaurants and bars that were in between. If I had my husband with me on that trip, I definitely would have made him stop and have something to eat with me, even though I wasn't ever hungry when I walked back to my Airbnb. But hey, that's okay. You're on vacation. You got to try stuff out. So that was Milan, and that was Lake Como. I would not care to go back to Milan again, except to see the Duomo church, to see the big cathedral. That would be one thing I would want to see. And then I would go to Lake Como to see the Star Wars scene. So those are two things I didn't get to see that I wanted to see, that I would definitely go back to see. Okay, then we went to Rome. Oh my gosh. They talk about everything's bigger in Texas, like huge houses, huge everything in Texas. No, you've got to go to Rome. Oh my gosh, the biggest buildings I've ever seen. The architecture is unbelievable. The cathedrals, the columns, the etching, the statues, like everything is unbelievably amazing. You walk on a bridge in Rome and it is intricately done. All of the statues are beautifully carved in wonderful, beautiful material. We ain't talking cheap stuff that we get here in the United States where we put up a steel bridge or we put up some kind of concrete thing. Oh no, this is beautifully designed, beautifully made. Just everywhere you went, you would see a monstrosity of a building that overtook you as a person, and you just wanted to just keep walking to see the next building and to check it out and to read the history and to see when it was built and when it was had some damage to it and had to be fixed and all that kind of stuff. So Rome was incredibly amazing, and I have a separate Rome video all about Rome, all about our experience in Rome, all about the places we visited in Rome, and my favorite places in Rome. So that's in a separate vlog. I also have a separate vlog on my favorite place that we went to in Italy, which was Venice. I literally texted my husband and said, I've fallen in love. I may not come home. That's exactly what I said to him, because I absolutely fell in love with Venice. And Venice is probably the place that we were visiting that I researched the most. I researched how the city was built. I researched about how they wanted to fortify the cities so that no one could get to it, how they had to put the stilts down all the way down in the ground. I researched about all the rainy periods and what they do during rain and how they put all of these walkways out when it rains. Luckily, it didn't rain while we were there. I just fell in love. Absolutely fell in love with Venice. I had, in comparison of my Airbnbs, which is also a separate vlog, I had an Airbnb in Milan. I had an Airbnb in Rome. I had an Airbnb in Venice. And of those three Airbnbs, Venice was the most beautiful and had the most beautiful views. I would say Milan was definitely second, and I loved my Airbnb in Milan. I mean, it was pretty close to being number one as well, but you can't beat Venice and the gigantic patio I had at Venice. I also had a rooftop patio in Rome, but the Rome Airbnb, just the air conditioning wouldn't work. It had a lot of little trinkets in there, so a lot of little stuff in there, and it was kind of dusty because of that. And so it was more of an apartment in someone's apartment that I was renting than an Airbnb that was out of an IKEA catalog, so to speak. All three great, fantastic views. And I do have a video all about my 3 Airbnbs that I stayed at in Italy and what I liked and didn't like about them, including location. They say location with real estate. It's also the same way when you travel, 100%. Don't just go for the inexpensive place. Make sure you look at where it's located, because it could end up costing you more because you have to get a cab or a taxi or a train or a bus or some other way to get into the city. So my 3 takeaways from this trip to Italy are: 1, location. Make sure that you are staying in a location that is near where the sites are that you want to see, or be near a very easy public transportation system where you can get on and off and get to your destination quickly without spending a lot of money. 2, go with the flow, especially in a large group. If there's a large group of people that you're traveling with, remember their top things to do and is not necessarily your top things to do. And so when you're with a large group, there will be compromises where you need to look at the interests of other people and keep that in mind and be able to go with the flow and enjoy the moment. And so one of the things I enjoyed the most about going with the flow with this large group of people that I was with was getting to know everyone on the trip. And I think not having guided tours provided that opportunity for us to be able to get to know each other better and to have more conversations. And I think that was probably the most valuable part of the trip and the biggest takeaway that I had from this trip. 3, pack accordingly. No matter where you go, you need to understand the terrain and understand the transportation system and understand how many different places you will be going to so you can pack accordingly. You cannot pack a big, gigantic suitcase and lug it all over Venice. Probably a backpack is better. If you do need to pack a suitcase, make sure that you're packing light, because it is very hard to lug your suitcase on and off trains, in and out of train stations, up and down stairs. It is very difficult. And when you're in an ancient city or when you're in a city that was founded in AD and BC, there aren't going to be elevators. So you really need to keep that in mind. How much do you want to be lugging this stuff up and down the stairs? And so packing light and packing according to your destination is the biggest takeaway. 4, know some of the language. At the very least, know how to say thank you, how to order basic items like an espresso or a coffee. How do they say that in Italy? How do they say that in the destination that you're going to? Having a basic understanding or basic knowledge of what some of those basic words are that you need to get around and to order the items that you are going to be ordering on a regular basis. I'm giving you these tips because I epically failed at most of them. I actually found myself cheating, asking for an American menu, and pointing several times. One of the reasons why this trip went so smoothly, going from Milan to Rome to Venice and back to Milan again, was because it was so well organized. Having one person or two people, a designated person in the group who is making the plans from destination to destination is key. So, my fifth and final takeaway from this trip is if you are that designated person, or if your group has not designated a person, or if you're traveling solo, the biggest takeaway that you can have when traveling is to pre-plan your destinations and make sure you know where you're going. And I'm not just talking about within the city and what you want to do and what you want to see, and that could change once you get there. I'm talking about how to get from the airport to your Airbnb and what are your options. And if option one doesn't work out, like when I went from the airport in Milan to my Airbnb in Milan because my flight ended up being super delayed, I ended up having to take an Uber. And so how do you do that? And how do you communicate with your driver when you don't speak that language? Like I said in my previous takeaway, how do you communicate with them where to go? Make sure that when you have your destinations planned out, that the person who's organized it, if you're the one organizing it, make sure that you have a printout of the location that you're going to, because your phone may not always be reliable, especially in between tall buildings. I've found this to be true in every major city that I've been to: New York, Chicago, any place overseas that's a major city. It's always a problem having that satellite system bounce off those buildings and get to your phone. You've probably noticed as you're walking to a place that your phone freezes. Well, that's why. So try to have a printout of where you're going. I found that by having a printed map of the location where I'm at, whether I'm hiking or touring a city or a rural destination, it is always beneficial and helpful, especially if the direction or the exact location is printed out, because then you can show it to someone and they can assist you with where to go. Scary true story of what happened to me and where I learned my lesson on this was when I went with a group of people to an island and I did not know who they were. I did not have their cell phones. I did not have a map printed, and I got left behind by this group and I had to find my way back to where our Airbnb was. I never put myself in that situation again. So I got to give a big shout out to my son's girlfriend and her family, who did a lot of the planning, and her cousin who did a lot of the planning, and her family who did most of the planning, because all I did was plan my Airbnbs and schedule my Airbnbs and schedule my flight to Milan and schedule my flight back from Milan home. And my one Uber driver from the Milan airport to my Milan Airbnb. Otherwise, everything else was planned out. And so I get why people like to have an entire trip planned out for them, because it takes a lot of the stress away. And I know how stressful it can be to plan a vacation for an entire group of people. I've done it numerous times, and I know how much work it takes to plan it. And when your flight schedule keeps changing, or when things change with your hotel or your flight, and you have to continually redo things because things are getting rescheduled over and over again, a flight's delayed or canceled or something like that. It takes a lot of work. Even a road trip takes a lot of work.
And no one shows you that side.
So I give a big shout out and a big kudos to the people who planned this vacation, because I had an amazing time. I absolutely fell in love with Italy. I can't wait to go back with my husband and see some of the things that I didn't get to see, because obviously you can't see everything in one trip, so you've got to go back. I got my footings in place on this trip, and so now I can take my husband back. So I can be like, hey, look at this, look at that, and go see those things with my husband. I mean, I purposely did not see specific things on this trip because I wanted to see them with my husband and bring him back here. I thank you so much for joining me on this trip to Italy. Please like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps the channel out as I bring you more content from this trip and other trips that my family and I have taken around the world. Check out my other videos that are coming and that are on my playlist for Italy, including Burano, Murano, Venice, Lake Como, and Rome, and what I liked and didn't like about those destinations and tips for each one of them. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all.
Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It really helps the channel. Thank you.